In the summer of 1741, a red-haired priest was lowered into a simple grave in the city of Vienna. There were no crowds, no orchestra, no farewell. Almost no one noticed that the man being buried had once been the most famous composer in all of Europe. His name was Antonio Vivaldi, and the world was about to forget him for nearly 200 years. This is the story of how his music came back to life. He was born in Venice in 1678, a city of canals and carnivals where music seemed to drift from every window. His father was a barber who had become a violinist at the great Basilica of St. Mark's, and it was he who first placed a small violin in his son's hands. But Antonio was a frail child. The story goes that he was baptized the very moment he was born, because no one was sure he would live through the night. He survived, yet a tightness in his chest, most likely asthma, would stay with him for the rest of his life. As a young man, Antonio trained for the priesthood, and because of his flaming red hair, all of Venice came to know him by a single nickname: Il Prete Rosso, the Red Priest. But soon after he was ordained, he stopped saying Mass. He said his health made it impossible, and so instead of the altar, he gave his life to music. He took a position at a place called the Ospedale della Pietà, a home for orphaned and abandoned girls. And there, Vivaldi did something quietly extraordinary. He taught these children, the ones the city had forgotten, to play. He wrote music just for them. And they played it so beautifully that visitors traveled from every corner of Europe simply to hear them. An orchestra of young women performing from behind delicate screens, their music filling the church like something out of heaven. Vivaldi wrote at a furious pace, concerto after concerto, hundreds of them, music that sparkled and raced and sang. And then, around the year 1725, he published 4 short concertos that would change music forever. He called them the 4 Seasons. For each one, he wrote a little poem of birdsong in spring, of a summer storm, of hunters in autumn, of ice cracking in winter. And then he did something almost no one had done before. He made the orchestra tell the story. You could hear the thunder roll. You could hear a dog barking, the frozen ground, the crackle of a warm fire. He was painting pictures, with nothing but music. For a time, Vivaldi was the toast of Europe, but fashion is a fickle thing. Tastes began to change, newer composers rose, and slowly, Venice grew tired of its Red Priest. His music stopped selling, and so, hoping for a fresh start and the support of an emperor he had once impressed, Vivaldi traveled north to Vienna. But the emperor died soon after he arrived. Alone and far from home, the once celebrated composer slipped into poverty. And in 1741, he died and was buried in that simple grave. His music packed away in boxes and forgotten. And there, the story very nearly ended. For almost 200 years, Antonio Vivaldi was little more than a footnote, remembered, if at all, as a name that a young Johann Sebastian Bach had once admired and studied and copied out by hand to learn from. But in the early 20th century, something wonderful happened. Scholars began to uncover his lost manuscripts, box after box after box of forgotten masterpieces. And when the world finally heard the 4 Seasons once more, it simply fell in love. Today it is one of the most beloved, most performed pieces of music ever written. Antonio Vivaldi died believing he had been forgotten. He could never have imagined that centuries later, his music would be everywhere, in grand concert halls and in films, on radios and telephones all around the world. The Red Priest of Venice was never truly gone. He was only waiting to be heard again. So listen now and hear the seasons turn, just as he imagined them, 300 years ago. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story was worth sharing, share it with someone younger.